All right, let's just jump right into this explainer because today we are peeling back the layers on what actually makes us wealthy. And spoiler alert, it's probably not what you think. We're going to look at the hidden currencies running our lives and really dig into the profound difference between things that just look expensive and the things that actually hold real value.
So, picture this for a second. An Australian YouTuber lands in Norway. He's got this very specific mental model of what a super wealthy nation should look like, right? And he is just completely baffled. He looks around and honestly assumes Norway must be struggling. Why? Because there's no line of Bugattis, no massive gold palaces, no towering, ostentatious high-rises. He just sees a place that's neat, clean, and perfectly functional. But the thing is, Norway is actually one of the richest countries on the entire planet. He was just looking for the completely wrong clues. And that brings us to this brilliant, totally counterintuitive insight. Ostentatious visual displays, buying a fleet of supercars or slapping gold plating on a skyscraper, those are actually the cheap option. Writing a huge check for Bugatti, that's a highly visible, very concentrated wealth signal. On the flip side, you have distributed wealth effects. Think humane prisons, pristine public transit, universal early education. Building that society is unbelievably expensive. It takes massive coordination, incredible institutional competence, but visually, it's incredibly quiet.
So this brings up a really core concept, the legibility of wealth. Our mental model of a quote-unquote rich country or a rich person is almost always skewed by these highly visible private concentrations of wealth. We are essentially trained to read low-resolution luxury signals. But because Norway chose a model of civic infrastructure over private accumulation, their wealth is super functional, yet almost completely anonymous. It's invisible to the untrained eye. It really forces us to realize that wealth is always a cultural and political choice about what we actually decide to make visible.
Section 1. The social grammar of wealth, moving from the relational to the financial. Okay, let's zoom in a bit, shifting from the macro level of countries down to the micro level of our very own neighborhoods.
Imagine growing up in a neighborhood where literally nobody locks their doors. People just drop by unannounced, and your worth is really measured by your generosity, your reputation for showing up when it counts. That right there is a relational economy. Now, imagine moving to an affluent suburb. Suddenly, everyone is guarding their porch with a Ring doorbell, coffees are scheduled 3 weeks in advance, and you've got a financial advisor. By any measurable financial standard, you absolutely have more. But somehow, you feel completely isolated. It's because your old currency, that generosity and reciprocity, well, it's just not legal tender here.
And this creates a really insidious assimilation trap. You literally watch yourself becoming someone you were taught growing up to quietly look down on. You start locking your door. You start screening your calls. A dominant financial grammar doesn't just measure value differently, you guys. It actively delegitimizes relational capital until you just quietly retire it.
But here is the truly shocking reality. The breakdown of neighborhood trust, it's actually highly profitable. Think about that Ring doorbell for a second. It's a technology of distrust that converts a welcoming front porch into a surveillance checkpoint. Entire industries, from private security systems to paid concierge services, even paid therapy, they exist to replace the community we lost. So the financial economy doesn't just replace the relational one. No, it literally monetizes its ruins.
Section 2. The Measurement Problem, a catalog of invisible wealth. Let's take a look at how alternative wealth systems can take decades to compound without ever once showing up on a bank statement.
Just think about the alternative currencies we are all trading in every single day. You've got civic wealth, powered by collective infrastructure. You have ecological wealth, which is measured by the intergenerational health of living systems. There's bodily wealth, your physical vitality, that feeling of sensory aliveness, and temporal wealth, meaning your autonomy over your own time. And what's so fascinating here is that the wealthiest lives in these categories look completely ordinary from the outside. Why? Simply because they don't have a clear price tag.
Take this story about environmentalist David Suzuki. When a real estate agent told him it was a quote-unquote good time to sell his property, Suzuki actually got angry. He sat down and made a list of what made his home genuinely valuable. He listed a kitchen cupboard built by his late father, a custom gate handle that was carved by his best friend, a treehouse his kids built in the dogwood tree out back. This is what we call mnemonic wealth. Wealth stored in the physical objects, the places, and the routines that carry deep relational meaning. And as Suzuki concluded about his list, he said, "To me, they are priceless, but on the market, they are worthless." And man, that hits hard, doesn't it? Our master market economy doesn't just fail to count the things that make up a meaningful life, it actively assigns them a value of exactly zero.
A gate handle carved by a friend isn't just decor. It's a compressed archive of a relationship. But to the market, it's just noise.
Section 3. The Externalities Trap. The Cost of Zero. Okay, let's pivot now from the deeply personal to the truly existential. Because if the market values our most precious memories at zero, what else does our financial measurement system value at absolutely nothing? Think about this for a second. What is the actual price of breathable air? Well, in the market economy, it's zero. And because it's priced at zero, historically, the atmosphere has been treated as this free, infinite sink for industrial waste.
Okay, what about drinkable water? You know, corporations have spent decades, and millions of dollars in lobbying, by the way, arguing that water is not a human right. They say it's a commodity. The whole strategy is to just accept the externalized destruction of public water sources, only to then enclose the clean water supply and sell it right back to us.
And what's the price of arable land? Industrial agriculture is rapidly depleting topsoil that literally took thousands of years to accumulate. We're burning through it in mere decades, just to produce cheap, short-term food, with absolutely no accounting on the balance sheet for that immense long-term loss.
Breathable air, drinkable water, arable topsoil. The market price assigned to the systemic destruction of these vital, life-giving planetary systems is, literally, $0. Now, the economic term for this is externalities. It sounds like this totally neutral, very dry technical accounting term, right? But in reality, externalizing costs is a formalized system for making the destruction of our life support systems somebody else's problem. It isn't just a moral failure, it's a highly rewarded design feature of the market. These costs are effectively being stolen from the future and from the commons, all just to create shareholder profit today.
And this all stems from what ecological economists call running empty world accounting software in a critically full world. See, for most of human history, the Earth was so massively large compared to our activity that the oceans and the atmosphere basically acted as infinite sinks. The world was effectively empty. But today, we live in a full world where human activity completely dominates and overwhelms these planetary systems. And yet, disastrously, we're still using the exact same financial ledger that assumes infinite abundance.
The really sobering reality here is that the financial system is the master system. It doesn't just outcompete these other forms of wealth, it actively digests them. Think about it. Relational wealth gets monetized into concierge services. Temporal wealth, literally your own free time, gets sold back to you as a luxury wellness retreat. Ecological wealth is sliced up and traded as carbon credits. The master system consumes absolutely everything it touches.
We have covered a lot of ground in this explainer today, from the quiet, functional civic wealth of Norway to the priceless memories in David Suzuki's backyard, all the way out to the completely unpriced value of the air we breathe. And it all comes down to a single provocative challenge. Look at the invisible systems you rely on every single day: your relationships, the public goods, the natural world. Take a hard look and then ask yourself, which ledger are you using to measure your life?
I want you to start off today by picturing the ultimate symbol of wealth. Like, just close your eyes for a second, assuming you're not driving, and really visualize it.
Right, just whatever pops into your head first.
Yeah, exactly. What comes to mind? Is it a pristine fleet of supercars parked in some climate-controlled garage?
Or maybe a super yacht, one of those massive ones that basically needs its own zip code.
Oh, totally. Or, a gold-plated penthouse towering over a major city. Because we have been conditioned for generations to see those exact things as the absolute pinnacle of success.
We really have.
But today, we're going to completely challenge that image. What if that kind of ostentatious display, the cars, the yachts, the gold, is actually the cheapest form of wealth?
It's a completely counterintuitive idea, I know. We naturally equate visibility with value. Like, if we can see it, it must be worth a lot.
Right.
But when you start to pull apart the mechanics of how we display wealth, you quickly realize that visibility is very often just a substitute for depth.
And welcome to today's Deep Dives, where we are going to do a lot of pulling apart.
Yes, we are.
We're exploring the underlying philosophy of modern wealth. And to do that, we're drawing on a really fascinating mix of ideas today.
It's a great stack of sources.
It really is. We're looking at the hidden aesthetics of a Norwegian airport, the cultural dynamics of changing neighborhoods, and this profoundly moving observation from the environmentalist David Suzuki.
Yeah, the Suzuki piece is just incredible.
It's going to hit hard. So our mission today is to entirely dismantle and then carefully rebuild your mental model of what wealth actually is.
Because the ways we choose to measure value, they do more than just describe the world.
Right, they actively shape it.
Exactly. They shape our psychology, our local communities, and ultimately the planet itself. The current definition of financial wealth is so deeply ingrained that we treat it like a law of physics.
Like it's just gravity or something.
Yeah. We assume this is just how the universe operates, rather than recognizing it as a very specific cultural grammar that we've collectively agreed to use.
Okay, well, let's unpack this premise right away, because I think a lot of people listening will have the same initial reaction I did.
Which was?
I have to push back on this idea that a super yacht or a mega mansion is somehow cheap.
Fair enough.
I mean, those things literally cost hundreds of millions of dollars. To me, it feels a bit like saying a fast food burger is cheap.
Okay, I see where you're going.
Right. Yes, it's cheap because you can just walk in and buy it with zero effort.
Yeah.
But growing a flourishing, sustainable vegetable garden, that requires time, deep knowledge, good soil, daily attention.
That's a really good point.
So are we actually saying billionaires are taking the easy way out with these massive purchases?
In a structural sense, yes. And your fast food analogy is actually the perfect way to understand this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Writing a check for a luxury item, no matter how many zeros are on that check, is a highly tractable problem.
Meaning it's easily solved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It requires capital, sure, but it does not require coordination. It doesn't require social capital or compromise or institutional competence.
It's just a transaction.
Right. And to really grasp this, we have to look at the taxonomy of dollar wealth from the sources.
Yeah.
The core observation here is that these massive financial displays aren't actually about the money itself.
What are they about them?
They are about treating a specific emotional wound or an underlying psychological need.
Oh, wow. So it's almost like a diagnostic tool.
Yes.
If we see someone buying something extreme, we shouldn't just look at the object. We should look at the anxiety or the ambition that made them buy it.
Precisely. Let's look at the different categories. Take influence and access purchasing, like funding super PACs or buying media platforms.
Okay.
The psychological need there isn't just to own a company. It's the desire for proximity to power.
To make sure you're the one pulling the string.
Exactly. It's the need to shape outcomes and ensure you're never at the mercy of someone else's decisions. Or look at the billionaire space race.
Oh, right, the rockets.
Yeah. That is entirely distinct from just buying consumer goods. That is an attempt to buy civilizational authorship.
Authorship. Like they want to write the next chapter of human history.
And put their name on it, yeah?
And then there's the element of pure escape, right? Private jets, private islands, maintaining massive personal legal teams.
Right, the escape hatches.
Yeah. When you look at it through this diagnostic lens, it's not just about wanting more legroom on a flight. The psychological drive is about buying impunity.
It's impunity, exactly.
It's about insulating yourself from the friction and the consequences that apply to everyone else.
And it gets even more profound when you look at the extreme end of the spectrum, which is death-defying projects.
Like the bunkers?
Yeah, end-of-the-world bunkers in New Zealand, cryogenics, massive investments in radical life prolongation.
It's wild stuff.
If we map the emotional register here, this isn't just technological ambition. It is quite literally, as the source brilliant phrases it, terror management with a credit card.
Terror management with a credit card. Man, that is one of those phrases that just stops you in your tracks.
It really is.
It completely shifts how you view a doomsday bunker. Like, it's no longer a flex or a cool piece of real estate. It's a concrete monument to existential anxiety.
Which brings us down to the most common and visible category, ostentatious display.
The supercars, the massive logos, the gold plating.
Right. This is designed purely to provoke envy. But structurally, this kind of display is the cheapest, lowest resolution way to signal value.
Because it doesn't take any effort to understand.
Exactly. You don't need to understand anything to know that a solid gold toilet is expensive. It is the fast food burger of wealth. And to see the contrast, we really have to look at Norway.
Right. There's this fascinating story in the sources of an Australian YouTuber who travels to Norway.
It's such a great example.
He's walking around Oslo making observations, and based purely on what he sees, he assumes Norway must be a relatively modest, maybe even slightly poor country.
Which is incredibly ironic.
Totally. He clearly hadn't looked at the global economic data because Norway is consistently ranked as one of the wealthiest nations on Earth.
Right.
But he assumed it wasn't, simply because he didn't see the Bugattis. He didn't see gaudy private palaces or people dripping in million-dollar designer wear.
Or those hyper-exclusive gated luxury resorts.
Yeah. So why did he miss it?
Well, his entire mental model of what constitutes a rich country was built on concentrated wealth signals.
Oh, okay.
He was scanning his environment for visual evidence of massive private accumulation. What he completely missed is that Norway, as a society, has made a different collective choice about how to deploy its capital.
They distribute it.
Yes, they invest heavily in distributed wealth effects.
So instead of private yachts, distributed wealth looks like universal early childhood education.
Exactly.
It looks like highly functional hospitals, humane correctional facilities, pristine public transit.
And just a baseline guarantee that everyone in the society has a decent standard of living.
And the mechanism here is what's really striking. Buying a fleet of Bugattis is fundamentally easier than guaranteeing high-quality education for 1 million children.
Oh, infinitely easier. Because universal systems require sustained political will over decades.
Right, you can't just write one check.
No, they require deep institutional competence, constant maintenance, and, a willingness to pay taxes for someone else's benefit.
Which is hard.
That is incredibly difficult, highly complex work. But, and this is the catch, it produces almost nothing you can photograph and post on social media to prove how rich you are.
Right, you can't take a selfie with a well-funded pension system.
Exactly. Distributed wealth is almost anti-legible. It is invisible precisely because it functions so smoothly.
Think about the aesthetic difference, too.
Yeah.
The text makes this amazing comparison between Donald Trump's preferred interior design and the design of the main airport in Oslo.
Oh, the materials contrast.
Yes. Trump's penthouses are famous for being absolutely covered in gold, and gold functions as a blunt instrument.
It really does.
It's low-resolution luxury signaling. It operates like a highway billboard.
Right.
It requires absolutely zero taste formation or education to decipher. Anyone on the planet instantly recognizes it as a projection of extreme wealth.
It speaks in the simplest possible vocabulary to the widest possible audience.
Right.
Whereas the Oslo airport relies on incredibly complex geometric design and highly specific, understated material choices.
Like the timber and stone.
Yes, specific cuts of timber and raw stone. That kind of aesthetic is more like a complex sentence with dependent clauses.
I love that phrasing.
It requires a cultivated receiver to actually read it and appreciate it. It doesn't shout at you. It communicates on a much narrower, much more sophisticated channel.
So when you are scrolling through social media and you see influencers flashing luxury brands and private jets, you are basically looking at the most anxious, lowest resolution form of value available.
Absolutely.
Because true societal wealth often just looks like the complete absence of catastrophe.
That is the core of it. Civic wealth is the absence of medical bankruptcy. It's the absence of rolling blackouts or collapsing bridges.
Things you just don't even notice.
It is wealth you take completely for granted until the exact moment it's gone.
Wow.
But that creates a really interesting tension.
How so?
Well, if Norway proves that distributed, invisible wealth is structurally better for a society, what happens to a person's psychology when they are forced out of a relational, distributed system and into a hyper-individualized financial one?
Oh, that brings us to this incredible vignette about neighborhood dynamics from the sources.
It's a very poignant story.
There's this story of someone who grew up in a working-class neighborhood that operated entirely on a relational economy. The mechanics of this place were built on trust and time.
Right, social bonds.
Nobody locked their doors. People
Yeah.
just dropped by unannounced. If you needed help moving, like 5 people showed up and nobody expected to be paid.
Because your actual net worth in that environment was measured by your generosity.
Yeah, the depth of your relationships and your reputation for simply showing up when things got hard.
But then as they achieve financial success, this person moves to a much wealthier neighborhood.
They move up in the world.
Right, they enter the financial economy. And the contrast is jarring. Suddenly, every single house has a Ring doorbell camera.
Everyone's watching.
Garages are full of expensive tools that are used maybe once a year, but nobody shares them.
Right.
The neighbors are perfectly polite, but if you want to see them, you have to schedule a coffee 2 weeks in advance via text message.
It's so formal.
Asking for a favor suddenly feels like a massive imposition. So, by every standard financial metric, this person has dramatically more money and assets.
But their lived experience is one of intense impoverishment.
Yes.
Because the currency that made them wealthy back home, reciprocity, casual community is totally worthless in this new neighborhood.
It doesn't translate.
And the grief in this story comes from what we can call the assimilation trap.
Right.
This person writes about the slow, painful realization that they are changing. They start locking their doors. They start screening their calls instead of answering.
It's heartbreaking, really.
It is. They watch themselves slowly becoming the exact kind of guarded, isolated person they were raised to pity.
And this is how a dominant system operates. The financial display system doesn't just describe what is valuable. It actively delegitimizes competing value systems.
It makes them feel invalid.
Exactly. In that old relational economy, poverty is defined socially. You are poor if you are the person nobody shows up for.
Poverty is isolation.
But in the financial economy, that exact same isolated person who trusts absolutely no one and whom no one trusts in return might have $10 million in the bank.
They're a millionaire.
Yes. The two systems produce fundamentally incompatible definitions of what it means to be poor.
The Ring doorbell is such a perfect symbol for this shift, as the text points out. It takes the front door, which for thousands of years has culturally functioned as a welcoming threshold.
Right, a place of entry.
And it converts it into a surveillance checkpoint.
It assumes hostility.
Wait, I'm struggling with this a bit, though. Let me push back.
Sure, go ahead.
If I go out and buy a Ring doorbell, my primary motivation isn't to destroy neighborhood trust. I just want to make sure my packages aren't stolen or, my kids are safe.
Of course.
I'm just trying to be responsible. So how does this framework account for the very real human desire for safety? Are we saying that wanting safety is bad?
That's a crucial distinction, actually. The desire for safety is entirely valid and natural.
Right.
The issue isn't your personal intent in buying the camera. The issue is the macro mechanics of the economy around it. What we are witnessing is an entire economic sector that has evolved to profit specifically from the breakdown of neighborly trust.
Oh, I see.
The financial economy doesn't just quietly replace the relational economy. It monetizes its ruin.
Monetizes its ruins. Let's walk through exactly how that happens, because that's a big concept.
Sure. Imagine a tight-knit neighborhood. In the past, the security system was just nosy neighbors sitting on their porches.
Right, keeping an eye on things.
And the insurance policy was the fact that if your roof caved in, the community would literally help you patch it.
They'd show up with hammers.
Exactly. But as we become more isolated, those organic systems collapse. So we buy a tech subscription to watch our porch.
Because the neighbor isn't there.
Right. We rent massive storage lockers because we no longer share lawnmowers or tools with the guy next door.
We all buy our own lawnmowers.
We use food delivery apps instead of having communal block dinners. We hire concierge services, and we even pay for therapy to replace the emotional processing that used to happen organically over a fence.
Wow. So the GDP actually goes up because the community broke down.
Exactly. The financial system digests our relational wealth, breaks it apart, and then turns around and sells it back to us as a premium luxury product.
Okay, well, if the market can so easily digest our relationships and spit them out as subscriptions, what does it do to the things that literally cannot be monetized?
The things that resist the spreadsheet.
Yeah, things that absolutely refuse to be put on a spreadsheet.
This leads us to a profound observation from the environmentalist David Suzuki, and this concept of mnemonic wealth.
Oh, this story is amazing. Suzuki tells this story about receiving a letter from a real estate agent.
Yeah, a very standard letter, Brett.
Very standard. The letter basically said, the market is hot. It's a great time to sell your property and buy up.
Cash in your chips.
Exactly. Now, this framing deeply angered him, but it prompted him to sit down and make a physical list of what actually made his property valuable to him.
And the list is so incredibly revealing.
Because he doesn't list the square footage, or the updated plumbing, or the proximity to downtown.
Not at all.
He lists the fact that his wife's parents lived with them in that exact house for 35 years, meaning his children got to know their grandparents intimately their whole lives.
It's beautiful.
He lists a specific kitchen cabinet. His father, who was a cabinet maker, built it for their very first tiny apartment, and Suzuki painstakingly tore it out and installed it in the new house.
The history there is so rich.
He lists a wooden gate handle that his best friend hand-carved for him during a visit. And he lists the little pet cemetery under the dogwood tree where his kids buried neighborhood birds and squirrels, and the treehouse he built in those branches.
Let's look closely at how Suzuki defines these objects. To him, that carved gate handle isn't just a piece of weathered wood.
Right.
It is a compressed archive of a friendship.
A compressed archive. I love that.
It is a memory that has been made physical. That cabinet is a portal back to a father who has passed away. This is mnemonic wealth, or place-based wealth.
And what's the defining trait of that?
The defining characteristic of mnemonic wealth is that it appreciates in personal emotional meaning over time, but it completely depreciates in market value.
And Suzuki uses this devastatingly precise vocabulary. He says that to him, these things are priceless, but on the open real estate market, they are literally worthless.
Yes.
Not undervalued, worthless. Their appraised value is exactly $0.
Nothing.
If you are a real estate agent trying to flip that house, a hand-carved asymmetrical gate handle is just noise.
It's a flaw.
Yeah. A pet cemetery under a tree is an active liability that you have to pay a landscaping crew to remove.
And this happens because we have allowed one single measurement system, the financial market, to become the undisputed master ledger of human life.
The Baxter Ledger.
Yes. If the master ledger cannot count a thing, it quietly reclassifies that thing as mere sentimentality. It frames it as an irrational attachment that we should probably just get over.
Just think about how this plays out at a funeral.
Oh, the eulogy contrast.
Yeah. When someone gives a eulogy, nobody ever stands up at the podium and reads the deceased's stock portfolio.
He had a great Vanguard index fund.
Right. Nobody talks about their credit score or the square footage of their house.
Yeah.
They talk about the carved gate handles. They talk about the inside jokes, the time they drove 3 hours in the middle of the night to help with a flat tire.
Yeah.
They're specific, irreplaceable quirks.
The relational wealth.
Exactly. For exactly 1 hour during that funeral, a completely different ledger of value opens up. Everyone in the room nods, people cry. We all collectively acknowledge that this is the truest measure of a human life.
And then the service ends.
And then the service ends. Society firmly closes that ledger, and by Monday morning, everyone is right back to operating entirely on the master system of financial measurement.
It's an astonishing level of compartmentalization. We just box it away.
We really do.
But this problem with the master ledger isn't just a personal or emotional issue. When you scale this exact same accounting flaw up to the planetary level, it becomes an existential threat.
Right, because if we ask the master ledger some basic planetary questions, the answers are terrifying.
What is the exact market price of breathable air?
Right. What is the price of a stable climate or drinkable rainwater?
According to the financial market, the price of breathable air is currently zero.
Zero.
And because its price is zero, it can be consumed and destroyed for free.
Wow.
Economists use the term externalities for this. In textbooks, an externality sounds like a very polite, neutral accounting anomaly, like a cost that just happens to fall outside a specific transaction.
Just a little oopsie.
Right. But when you look at the mechanics of it, an externality is really just a formalized system for stealing from the future and stealing from the commons.
Let's expand on that board game analogy we were kicking around earlier.
Yeah.
Because I think it helps visualize this.
Oh, yeah. The trash analogy.
Right. So imagine you and I were playing a complex board game.
Okay.
But the rules of this specific game state that I am allowed to take all the trash I generate, all my toxic waste, and just throw it over the fence into your yard.
I wouldn't want to play that game.
Right. And then, at the end of the round, I get to smugly brag to the rest of the table about how incredibly clean and efficient my house is and how high my score is.
Well, my yard is ruined.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The rules of the market actively reward the player who figures out how to externalize the most garbage.
That is exactly how corporate accounting functions. The atmosphere and the oceans are the largest commons in human history.
They belong to everyone.
Right. A factory can pump toxins into a river or carbon into the air, and their quarterly books look absolutely fantastic. They show record profits.
Because they didn't pay for the cleanup.
Exactly. Why? Because the cost of the poisoned water, the downstream cancer clusters, the collapsing fisheries, those immense costs do not appear on their balance sheet.
They are externalized.
Yes. The costs are handed to the public and to future generations, while the profits are concentrated and handed to the shareholders.
And this ties into the empty world versus full world paradigm from the sources, which really gets to the root of why our accounting is so broken.
It's a brilliant historical framework, honestly.
Let's break that down.
Well, for the vast majority of human history, the physical world was so immense relative to our tiny population and our limited industry that it effectively functioned as an empty world.
Empty meaning we couldn't really dent it.
Right. The oceans and the atmosphere were so massive that they acted as infinite sinks. You could externalize your pollution, you could dump waste into the sea, and the system wouldn't break because the world could just absorb it.
But that era is permanently over.
Permanently. We have transitioned into a full world. Human activity now dominates and dictates the health of every major planetary system.
But the terrifying mechanical failure here is that we are still running empty world accounting software on a full world reality.
A master ledger never got an update.
It's running on an old operating system. So if a business tries to do the right thing, if they spend millions to scrub their emissions and pay fair wages, they're punished by the market because their overhead is higher.
They look as profitable.
Exactly. The business that ruthlessly externalizes its environmental costs has a massive built-in competitive advantage. Left entirely to its own devices, the market will always select the most aggressive externalizer.
Because every system of wealth has blind spots. Every ledger ignores something. But right now, the financial system's blind spots are being applied globally.
And the stakes are so high.
The staggering destruction of our ecological wealth is rendered completely invisible on the balance sheet, in the exact same way that the loss of relational wealth was rendered invisible in that quiet, isolated neighborhood with the Ring doorbells.
So how do we pull all of these threads together?
It's a lot to process.
It is. If there is one overarching synthesis from our deep dive today, it is that wealth is never just an objective mathematical fact.
No.
Wealth is always a collective choice. It is a decision about what we are going to count.
What we value.
Right. We've explored how the dominant financial system is just one specific grammar. And it is a grammar that has an aggressive, almost predatory tendency to digest other forms of wealth.
Like our local relationships.
Our local relationships, our autonomy, our ecological stability. And it renders their destruction totally invisible.
And the takeaway here isn't, it isn't some simplistic idea that money is inherently evil.
No, of course not.
Money is a tool. The danger arises when financial wealth becomes the only legible form of value in a society.
No, it's the only metric.
Exactly. When that happens, we literally lose the vocabulary required to defend the things that actually sustain us.
The things that matter.
The truest forms of wealth compound quietly over decades. A father's lifelong circle of friends.
The resilience of a healthy local ecosystem.
The deep civic wealth of living in a society where you aren't terrified of a medical emergency bankrupting you.
Right.
These things require time, consistency, and a real commitment to showing up.
They require exactly the inputs that a checkbook cannot provide.
Well said.
These things are utterly invisible on a bank statement, and they are never going to go viral on social media. They are the anti-Bugatti.
The anti-Bugatti, I like that. And because they are anti-legible, because they don't scream for our attention, they are incredibly easy to overlook.
We've been aggressively trained to scan the horizon for the gold-plated penthouse.
And in doing so, we look right past the functioning public transit system or the unlocked front door.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a brand new thought experiment to mull over, building on everything we've just unpacked today.
I love this one.
Tonight, I want you to take a slow walk through your own home. Do a mental audit of your worthless assets.
The $0 items.
Yeah. Imagine a scenario where a fire breaks out. Now, assume the absolute best conditions. Every person is out, all the pets are completely safe, and every single financially insured item, your TV, your laptop, your furniture, is guaranteed to be replaced by the insurance company.
Everything replaceable is covered.
Yes. Under those exact conditions, what are the objects in your home with a market value of exactly $0 that you would risk your own life to run back inside the flames to save?
It's an incredibly clarifying question, isn't it? Are you running back for a faded photograph?
A letter stuffed in a drawer somewhere.
Or a piece of worn-out handmade furniture?
Exactly. Because whatever makes that final list, whatever you are willing to run back into the fire for, that is the precise geographical location of your actual wealth.
Beautifully put.
The supercar and the superyacht might be what the master ledger tells you to chase. But in the end, it is the carved gate handles of our lives that hold the true weight of the world.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning what you choose to count.